We were also talking about the diseases, and the diseases we're talking about is bilharzia. That's one that can affect the kidney, but I won't talk about bilharzia here. I will talk about bilharzia when we do population ecology. So I spoke about kidney stones, and I said that kidney stones, it could be calcium or it could be urea. Now, calcium is the hardest type of kidney stone. Calcium comes from too much milk, and urea comes from having too much alcohol or a lot of protein, meat, biltong. And what actually happens is here in the kidney, there'll be these crystals, urea crystals or calcium crystals. Now, if you don't drink a lot of water to flush out these crystals, then these crystals can join and form stones. Then these stones in the kidney can damage the kidney, but as they're moving out of the kidney into the ureter has a lot of pain receptors. So even if it's a small stone or crystal and it's moving downwards, you're going to actually feel all that pain. So it's extremely, extremely painful. Then it goes to the bladder, and then when you try to urinate the stone out, it's even more painful. So that is kidney stones. Now, it could be calcium or it could be urea crystals, depending on your diet. And the first treatment will be antibiotics. Antibiotics never usually work. Then they use laser to try and break down the stone, but that never works. And then they use a method called blasting, where you are asleep and a machine hits you in your back to try and break down the stone into pieces. And then they put a stent in here, which is a little tube. And if there's a lot of pain receptors here, can you just imagine how painful it is to try and collect all these little pieces of broken stone? And that is kidney stones, and that's the treatment for kidney stones. The next thing is renal failure. And renal failure, now most of your kidneys, when you have an infection, you first will have a bladder infection. If you don't treat the bladder infection, it'll go to the ureter, where you get, it's called a urinary tract infection, a UTI. And if you don't treat the UTI, it goes to your kidney and it gets kidney infection. And if you don't go for antibiotics and treat the kidney, then your kidney can lose percentage of how much it works. And then your kidney can start to fail. And if it's below than 30%, then your kidney is failing and it cannot filter your blood. You can also get renal failure from an accident, or it could be a slow process, a chronic problem. And diabetics, high blood pressure, infections, and certain medication and arthritis also can lead to acute failure. Now, the symptoms will be fluid will start swelling in your body, because that's the first thing that happens. Your kidneys can't get rid of the excess water. You're tired, short of breath, you're sleepless, you can't eat, you have weight loss, and you're nauseous. So these are some of the symptoms. Now, let's look at the treatment, dialysis. Now, with dialysis, you get hemodialysis and you get peritoneal dialysis. And hemodialysis is when you are connected to a machine and one blood vessel, the needle goes in the artery and the other needle goes into the vein, and your blood flows into a machine. And in this machine, your blood will filter all the substances, or at least some of them. And here you have to be careful, because you can't have certain things, because the machine can't filter all the substances. And there you go for it 4 to 5 times a week, and you sit in it at the machine 3 to 4 times an hour, okay, per day. And that means sometimes you have to leave your job. So that's hemodialysis. Peritoneal dialysis is, this is the membrane of your abdomen. They inject you, they cut you on the side, they inject you with a catheter, and you inject the fluid. Now, this is the membrane of the peritoneum. And this membrane will allow waste from your body to go through the membrane and into the fluid. And then every day you must drain the fluid and put in new fluid. That's called peritoneal dialysis. Now, I also told them the story of our neighbor. Our neighbor was on peritoneal dialysis, and he couldn't go on hemodialysis because he was working. So he used to go on peritoneal dialysis. So he lived it comfortably until 40 years. And then he found out that his brother was a tissue match. And then he applied for years. It took him 3 years to apply to the government for him to get his brother's kidney. And then the month before he could get his brother's kidney, he died. So that was now peritoneal and hemodialysis. Now I was telling them, and they put the answer on the group. So we can look at it from your phone. I told them they must know they're going to put them in situations. And they must know the difference between dialysis and transplant. Now we did the differences. Now, dialysis, it's not invasive. Invasive means you need surgery, they have to cut you. Okay, so dialysis is non invasive, transplant is invasive. Dialysis, you have to change your diet because dialysis the machine cannot filter everything. Transplant, you don't need to change your diet. Dialysis is not very expensive. I also told them, firstly, when you have medical aid, you'll use your medical aid, then it becomes exhausted. And we have one of the best dialysis facilities in the world. Okay, because once your medical aid runs out, then you have to go on through government. So dialysis is not expensive if you go to the government hospitals, and then transplant is very expensive. Dialysis, you don't have to take any medication. Transplant, you have to take medication for the rest of your life so the organ doesn't get rejected. In dialysis, there's no organ rejection, and with the transplant, there's a chance of an organ rejection. And I told him that they could be put in a situation. They can tell you, okay, your friend has to make a decision whether she must get a dialysis or a transplant, and help her decide which one she should get with reasons. And that's why we discussed this. So you must know reasons for dialysis or transplant, advantages, disadvantages, and for your exam and test. Thanks, Atya. I hope this helps. Let me know. Thank you.